Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to be doing an unboxing of Nemesis. Now this is not a new game by any stretch of the means, but it is one that I feel like people are going to start seeing more and more as this is technically the second edition, the one where they have updated the miniatures since the first edition. So I think that you're going to start seeing these more and more in friendly local game stores. You're going to start seeing them more on people's table. Also, as lockdown pledges begin to deliver, you will start seeing more and more of these out in the wild. So I wanted to go ahead and do an unboxing just because it's probably been a while since an unboxing of Nemesis has hit YouTube. So this game is by Awaken Realms, but Rebel now is the company who is producing Nemesis. They are producing Awaken Realms as Nemesis for retail purposes. So if you're going to purchase a retail version of it, it's going to say Rebel. If it's a Kickstarter version, it's just going to say Awaken Realms on it. Otherwise, it's exactly the same thing. So, for those of you not familiar with Nemesis, this is Alien in a Box. It is a mostly cooperative. There is a trader mechanic that can be thrown into the game, but for the most part, it is a cooperative game where you wake up on a ship that is, you don't know where it's headed, you don't know if it's crashing, you have to make your way through the ship, fix the engines, set the coordinates properly, take all these necessary steps to ensure your safety and possibly make it into an escape pod, all while hopefully not alerting the aliens to you. And the aliens in this version of Nemesis are very akin to the aliens from the movie Alien. There are other expansions that you can get for this game, as well as the standalone expansion Lockdown, which we'll be seeing probably sometime next year, I'm guessing, on the channel. But this really it feels like the Nostromo, it feels like the Mother Queen, whole 9 yards. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the box here. Pretty typical standard size box for Awaken Realms. There was a little bit of a lid lift, so there's probably lots of cardboard in here. All right, so we have our game manual, and I believe that they did some updating of this manual from the first edition to the second edition. I don't see any dates or anything like that on here. Let's see if there's anything on the back. But there is the date 2021 on the back of the box. So, but you can see comes with your hero miniatures, and then larvae, creepers, adult intruders, 2 breeders, and then the queen that basically reminds everybody of the alien. All of these other markers, and then the game board here you can see, we'll take a look at that later. All of the tiles are placed down, face down, so you're not sure which room you're walking into. Basically the layout of the ship changes every game, which makes it interesting. And then all these cards, basically lots of cards. All right, so we have our game overview, author's word, and a game introduction. This is quite a lot of text right off the bat here. So here we go, 13 steps to game setup. Here you can have a closer look. I know there's some glare here. There's very shiny pages. Closer look at kind of what the ship looks like. And here we are, still more setup. Crew setup is 6 additional steps. And then even more board description. Okay, so here they are describing the board. And then we're going to get into flow of the game, player goals, end of the game, and then all of your actions. So it's a pretty big rule book. There is a lot to go over here, but I don't think it's really that complicated of a game. Again, I have seen plenty of playthroughs of the game, and it is one that I have been interested in, so I have given it a fair amount of attention, and it really doesn't seem like it needs that big of a rule book. Okay, what do we have here? Additional rooms 2, special rooms, room sheets. Okay, basic rooms. Okay, so this looks like it's a player aid. It's a very large player aid, but that's fine. Basically gives you a description of each of the rooms that you might flip over. Special rooms, additional rooms. There's 2 of these, which I think is perfectly fine. Seeing as they're so large, you don't need these all over the table. So that's a nice little touch. All right, now we get into all of the cardboard. So let's flip this like this. All right, so this essentially is the the various rooms that are going to be on the ship, and so you can see that they have various symbols on them. There's also these numbers that go around the outside that you're going to be rotating them so that you can use them a certain amount of times, and what number you rotate it to is different each time based on a token that's placed on top of it. So again, the layout of the ship and how you interact with it is going to change from game to game. So there are some of the rooms. Here we have some more boards. Here we have these are engine tokens. I believe these are probably like hyperdrive or maybe additional engine tokens, so whether they're damaged or working, you flip these over. And then the intruder board. So this basically helps you run the aliens. Again, to my knowledge, there's not a version of the game where you can play as an alien, but I believe maybe you can, if you die, play as a certain type of character. I'm not really 100% sure on that. We've got some additional rooms to the ship. All right, and so now you can see we are starting to have these are the tokens that you're going to see flipped over. So if we actually look at the back of these here, you see it's just a question mark. So these will be sitting on a face down room tile. And when you flip them over, you can see you're going to rotate the room tile to either 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. And then various things are going to happen. Does an intruder come out? Do you put a gear token, which means you need to repair the room first? These look like some doors and things like that. So also over here we have what essentially you're drawing threat out of a bag. And so the bigger the circle here, obviously this is, I believe, the big bad queen, and some of the smaller ones, and even a blank that you could possibly draw out. All right, so let's just take a quick look at the character boards here, which I think are really nice. They've got spots for taking wounds, and you move. They've got the kind of similar to viticulture, but we've seen them in other games like Tainted Grail, the kind of flattened glass beads that you're going to put here, whether you've been slimed or wounded. It's got a very nice picture of your miniature, in case you forget who you might be playing it as, a spot to put your draw deck, your discard pile, your right hand, your left hand. I think these are just really nice player boards. They're not overly huge. They've got a good amount of artwork on them, and then they give you the information that you need. So we saw the captain and the mechanic. Now we have the scientist and the pilot here. Again, just more of all of these types of tokens. And then the scout and the soldier. These are the escape pod tokens. Not 100% sure what these tokens are here, but again, just more of these room reveal tokens. All right, and then we have a box stand, which is just a nice touch added at the game. The first player token is the space cat and some doors. It's interesting. It says the box stand is simply to take a cool picture of your game box. Hashtag Nemesis BG. It's kind of weird that that's really what this whole thing is for. I guess they just had so much leftover cardboard that they wanted to do something with it. All right, so here is the board. I'm actually going to set this aside because it is quite a large board. It is like a 6-sided bifold, trifold board, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to look at this when we can zoom out and take a better look at it. All right, So in typical Awaken Realms fashion, there is a decent plastic insert inside with a nice cover, so all of your cardboard and game board and stuff can fit on top and doesn't squish anything. Your player boards are going to go in here. All right, so we've got some nice stands for your player cards here. So if you are playing with a trader mechanic, you can keep your hand a secret. Let's see, I believe that's probably all that's in there. Yep. You also have a scanner here. This one slides in, but this option is becoming more and more popular, and this, I believe, actually was out in the wild before Madara's version was out in the wild. Madara uses it to reveal hidden text in the objectives and the scenario text, things like that. For this one, when you take a wound card, you could be infected, kind of like have an alien inside of you, and so you could actually make it to the end of the game and technically have escaped on escape pod and not checked all of your wound cards and be infected, and you lose. So in typical alien fashion, they still get you anyways, but there are opportunities for you to scan your cards. When I see a actual wound card, we'll show you how it works, but that's really all the scanner is for. But you're just going to slide the card in here, and it kind of holds onto it. All right, so let's see what else we got here. We have some rings for the player character miniatures. We've got some standees for the doors. Here are the flat glass beads I spoke of. These are pretty standard. We've seen those before, as well as the red cubes. You see these in all of their games. A lot of other games like Terraforming Mars, things like that. These are for wounds. Have a couple unique dice here. So a couple D12s. Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. D10s and D6s, but they are all unique in their own right. So these are going to be for threat and damage, fighting intruders, things like that. And then you have a lot of these tokens here, which are nice because they are plastic. Basically this game got upgraded via Kickstarter, and a lot of those nice Kickstarter features have made their way into the retail edition. So this easily could have been a cardboard token, but instead it's a little plastic chip. This is, again, if a room, walk into it and it's broken, you put this on there until you've repaired it. And so, for example, here are the fire markers. This is just basically the kind of clear plastic. Makes me think of like Litgo, bases and things like that. You can find these on Etsy, but it's nice that they come in the actual base box. And then we have some noise tokens here. So as you move through the hallways, you're going to make noise. If you make too much noise, the aliens come out. But again, nice plastic pieces here. All right, then we also have our bag. Like I mentioned before, you're going to be drawing out those round capsules there to see what aliens might or might not come out. All right, so here we have some of the smaller alien miniatures. These are the larva miniatures. So basically your simplest of the creatures. And also you can see that there's basically a spot for everything in the box. And each one of them has, like your doors go in here, your flame tokens go in here, your noise tokens go in here. I'm sure I'll figure out. I wonder if it says in the box where everything goes. But let's take a look at some more of these aliens. So these are the two adult males, basically known as the breeders. So again, very the tails are kind of all over the place. They are flexible, which I think is good because that way they're not going to break. But also like this one, obviously, is not going to sit flat without this pushing up out of the way. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But they do look nice. Got a lot of nice detail. You can also see that there is a thematic base underneath. It's not overly done, but it is it looks like the flooring of a ship or something like that. So it's a nice touch that it's there. Then you have the creeper ones here, which are kind of like, you know, in between these two guys. These guys kind of crawl along the floor. These are like your, you know, your teenagers, your adolescents, things like that. Again, just all pretty gruesome. Okay, and then here we have some of our hero characters. Now the detail, it has definitely been blown up. These are rather small. These are pretty small miniatures. I guess part of it is that I have become accustomed to holding on to. I've been painting a lot of Marvel United recently, which are big chunky chibi miniatures, things like that. And so these definitely feel small. I wonder how they compare to the there's the Scout, the Tainted Grail miniatures. This guy right here is easily a very, you know, iconic look from Aliens, the second movie, where she kind of gets in that suit at the end of the movie. That's what that guy always reminds me of. And yeah, this guy's probably the most recognizable character who's on the box, and pretty sure this is the captain pointing the way. Then you have your character here in a wheelchair, which I think was just a cool touch that they added this in. You're starting to see you know, more characters in games, miniatures that are outside the realm of just normal people walking around on all fours. And then there's this guy who, you know, he doesn't look like a human. He's got this fat neck and, you know, bulging body. I'm not quite sure if this guy's an alien or not, but all right, so that's all the miniatures up top here, and there obviously must be a lower portion to the game, so let's see how, yep, this slides right out nice and easy. And we have another nice cover here. Oh, and we've got even more miniatures, so these two are the breeders, so I'm way off on my determining of which aliens are which here. All right, so let's spin this way, and of course, let's take a look at this beauty right here. Yeah, she's got like the smaller aliens crawling out of this container here. This is a really cool miniature. She's holding on to one here. I don't know if she's about to eat this thing or if she's taking care of it. You know, nasty looking mouth. So, you know, she's got a little bit of a kind of Cthulhu feel to her with the tentacles and everything like that. But definitely, you know, a really awesome miniature. If this thing comes out, you are screwed. So there she is. And then, you know, these guys probably all right here along the outside are probably all on the same level. They may be the same as the ones we saw on the other side that were crouching. I'm not 100% sure. This guy looks a little funny to me. He almost looks like he's like a mime doing a mime routine trying to scare you, but you know, I don't know. So there's that guy, and he's slightly different from this guy, which is interesting. You know, he's definitely more tilted to the side over here. I mean, I think it's okay. He doesn't look like he's broken, but it's almost like these two were supposed to be the same, but they came from two very different molds, which is interesting. I wonder if everybody's is like that. Oops. And then we've got some more crouchers here. Again, just, you know, typical Awaken Realms miniature quality here. And then there's these guys who are almost as impressive as the queens. So there we go. The only thing that, so here you can see there's a spot for the room tiles, empty space for sleeved cards, empty space for sleeved cards. So that's nice. So they're saying, all right, if you choose to sleeve all your cards, we've given you the additional space in the box. I think that was also a kind of version 2 upgrade that they've added since the lockdown Kickstarter. The only drawback of me purchasing this game the way I did, which by the way came from Game Nerds. It was a deal of the day recently, and so that just goes to show you that even these really big box games that have a high price tag and are very popular at the moment, if you just kind of are patient about it, you can find them on sale. So $90 for a game that is regularly $140 was a steal in my opinion. The only drawback is that they are not sun dropped, and my lockdown pledge, which is going to be compatible to some degree with this copy here, will be sun dropped. So I need to figure out how to implement the little DIY sun drop here on my figurines. All right. So let's see here. We've got a whole bunch of cards. I am looking for the wound cards, but we might not get to see them. So let's just pull these out and we'll take a closer look at them. Okay, so first off, let's take a look at all of the smaller cards. The majority of the smaller cards are the item cards. So you can see they come in 4 categories here. Basically, maintenance / support items, things that are going to help you repair the ship, get through the ship, things like that. Weapon items, ammo, stuff like that, and medical, health items, things that are going to heal you, and then crafted items. So let's take a look at these last. Here are just some examples: energy charge, prototype rifle, another energy charge, lots of energy charges here, prototype shotgun, prototype pistol, grenade, smoke grenade, recon drone. But what I want you guys to notice here is the symbols in the upper right corner. Not all of them, but for example, all of these energy charges have this lightning bolt symbol, and that appears to be it. So, but I think a majority of them are in here. So here you can see energy charges can come in this way too, but here clothes have a cloth symbol, and chemicals have the flame symbol. Fire extinguisher. Tools has the tool symbol, and duct tape cannot be used in combat. So there are specific items, but then there's also items that just fill that various symbol. Here's some more clothes, alcohol. I think we've covered most of them. Oh, here's the last one, med kit. So as you acquire these into your possession, you can use them, but you can also discard them to craft these items. So for example, if you have a tool and a flame item, you can discard them to create the flamethrower. And this deck basically is not hidden information. You can always look through this, so you realize, oh, if I got some clothes and some flame, I can make a Molotov cocktail. Then boom, perfect, you can just craft a Molotov cocktail. So this deck just kind of sits off the side, and you're allowed to look through it whenever you want. The rest of these come up when you search specific types of rooms. You'll notice that these symbols were found on the rooms. So that's the majority of the small cards here. There are also the basically starting equipment cards for each of the characters. So let's just, for an example here, look at the soldiers cards, because each person has 3 cards. So there's the starting item for the soldier, and that is an assault rifle. So you can see it has 5 ammo. Each time you deal at least 1 injury, deal 1 additional injury. So it's got a little special flavor text. And then you'll see that they've got these 2 cards that will be face down like this when you start the game. So this one here says discard tools or duct tape to activate this item. So you're having to spend 1 action, which we'll talk about here in a second. But if you have duct tape or tools, you can simply discard them to basically craft your armor. and then you have the armor, you can discard it to completely ignore an intruder attack. Whereas this one, you have to be in a specific room. You simply pay 1 action point to activate this item. You flip it over, and now you have an auto loader into your assault rifle. So it now has ammo +1. So just basically, this is like your starting weapons, your starting loadout, but you can add, you know, to things like this. But each person has like these little mini quests that they can go on throughout the game. You also have intruder weakness cards. So sometimes you can find that the aliens have specific vulnerabilities, vulnerability to fire, energy. You basically are given the chance to give them a weakness card, and that helps you defeat them sooner. And then last but not least of these small cards is the coordinates card. So you can see here that these are going to be randomly, you'll deal one out at the beginning of every game, and they all are different. Basically, for example, here on one of our solo objective cards, it says Destination Earth, this ship must reach Earth. So this is one of our objective cards in a solo or co-op game. So if we are steering the ship, we may know that the ship is headed to B, but we may not know until we check the coordinates of the ship where B is, and then we'll find out, oh, B is to Mars. Well, then we have to go back and change the coordinates to C. So that's basically what these cards are for. All right, so while we have these out here, you can see that there's some solo and co-op objectives, and then a whole bunch of standard objectives. This game, again, is meant to be played semi-co-op. You can see here some of these are very different from the other. For example, this one here says player 1's character cannot survive, or your character is the only survivor, or player 2's character. So this is where, you know, like not necessarily the what do you call it? Not the intruder. Traitor mechanic comes in, or like My Precious. Send the signal and finish the game in an escape pod or hibernation with an intruder egg object. So for example, this one you're trying to steal out with an egg, which may make it more difficult for you. So there's corporate and then there's personal. These ones are much more nicer. You're the character, your character's the only survivor, or the ship must reach Earth. The ship, you know, here this one says you and at least one other character must survive. So a lot of these, you know, one person may have the ship must reach Earth, and the other one might say the ship must reach Mars, and you guys are going to be battling over the coordinates area the whole time. So, objective cards. Then we have these player aid cards. Basically, it just gives you your player phases, event phases, and then when you are ready to pass, you flip them over. Other than that, it just tells you who you are, because we saw that many of the objective cards, it depends on what your player number is. Then we have some character draft cards. You can use these to do a character draft where you're randomly given 2, and then you would say, all right, I either get the mechanic or the captain. I'm going to choose, say, the captain, or you can just pick your characters. All right, we have an intruder attack deck. This basically, this comes out, and you know, this is the number of wounds you're going to do, but also as you draw out of the bag, you're hopefully not getting these symbols. You can see certain ones have more symbols than the other. So basically, if you draw one of these symbols out of the bag, they also do scratch. You know, and some of these are worse than others. So anytime an intruder attacks, you're basically drawing one of these at random. You know, there's a whole bunch of these. All right, what else do we have here? We have some serious wound cards. So if you get wounded twice, then you gain a serious wound. And for example, this one says the character has only one hand slot for heavy items objects. If they have two heavy items objects, they must instantly drop one. Here's leg. The cost of your escape movement action is 2. So basically you just kind of have to deal with this. I don't know if there's even any way to heal serious wounds. And then there's also a very large contamination deck, which you can see they all appear to be exactly the same, and they all have the same back as your action deck. Again, because if you are contaminated, this is like wound cards in a standard deck builder. You're going to add these to your hand, and then you're going to draw them from your face down draw pile, and then they're just going to clog up your hand. But at the end of the game, or if you make it to say like the med bay, you'll have to take this card, slide it into our handy dandy thing here, and I don't know how well you guys can really see that, but at the moment it's just a jumble of letters. So that's telling me, well, I'm not infected. But if I happen to draw this next card, you can see that if you look at the jumble of letters, it actually spells infected there on the second row. Infected could be on any row, but this is an instance where you could escape with this contamination card. If you were the character with this one that says infected, you actually would lose. This character would be fine. So again, whole bunch of these. You never know what you're going to get. The backs all look the same as your action cards, so that you don't know when you're going to draw them. So speaking of your action cards, again, they all look the same on the back, but they all do various things. So let's just, well, let's not use that one. Let me find one here with a, so that's really it. Most of these are zeros, which is nice. So these cards play 2 roles in the game. One is that you have to discard a number of cards to take any action. Now, if you remember on your player board, it was telling you that you had all these basic actions that you could do that cost 1 action point. Or say, for example, this guy right here costs 1 action point to use the technical corridor plans. To use 1 action point, you have to discard any card from your hand. 1 card equals 1 action point. If, however, you wanted to do basic repairs, you would have to discard 2 cards from your hand to be able to then use this card. So you see this mechanic a lot in like Marvel Champions from Fantasy Flight Games. Is probably the most popular one at the moment, where your cards turn into the energy to actually then play the cards. So you have to decide which cards am I willing to discard at the moment, to then which ones are more important to play. These decks are a lot smaller, and there you will be adding a few contamination cards, but for the most part they don't get big and bulky, and so you're going to go through them a lot. But for example, search card, you don't have to discard any cards. It's a free action or rest. But then like movement, to move from one room to the next is a single movement or a single action point. So you have to discard some card from your hand. You're going to have to give up, maybe you give up rest early on in the game. But later on in the game, when you have plenty of stuff in your hand, you give up search. That's how you move from one room to the next. However, if you want to move carefully to try and not draw the attention of an intruder, then you have to give up 2 cards. Moving carefully costs 2 action points. You have to discard 2 cards from your hand to move carefully from one room to the next. So basically every character has their own, you can see these are for the captain, has their own unique action deck. And last but not least here is simply an event deck. Basically during the event phase, you will be drawing one of these, and it may throw out an alien, it may, things may catch on fire, things like that. Various negative effects start to happen on your ship as it begins to fail on you. So that is all the cards. We're going to pan out now briefly and take a look at the board, and that will be it for our unboxing of Nemesis. Okay, so here is a shot of the board. This is the standard size board, so this board's actually double-sided. You can tell that it's the standard side because it has these 3 arrows up at the top. The other side of the board pretty much looks very similar, except there's a lot more dead ends. You start more towards the front of the ship here. You start in the middle, so you can really kind of go any direction pretty quickly. The other one, you start more up here, and so to get back here to the engines is much longer travel. Like I said, there's more dead ends, things like that. So there are options for playing a more advanced game. But just a few things here that I wanted to point out. You notice that we had those engine pieces earlier, that certain engines could be damaged or working. Here are areas that you place, your room tiles down, and you can see there's numbers here. So certain room tiles do get placed in certain certain room tiles get placed closer towards your starting positions here. So you're not going to necessarily, you can see that the ones are more spread out to the edges. So there is a little bit of that typicalness in the setup. You can see there are these various tracks for getting the escape pods going. Time trackers, you basically have 15 rounds before it's game over. Here is where your escape pods are going to sit, here and here. And that's really most of it. This is, again, where you are going to start. This is where you kind of wake up from your hibernation. Your engines are back here. Your, the front of the ship is up here. And this is where, again, you can change the coordinates. So say you want to go to Earth and Earth is A, you would put the little clear bead over A. So, but also, if you've been here, you secretly look at the card and then you set the coordinates however you want. You lay the card back down, face down. So if you're the only one who has made it up here to the ship, you may have pointed the ship into a black hole and no one else would know. They may trust you that you say, oh no, I pointed it to Earth, but really you pointed it to a black hole, you got an escape pod and left everybody behind. So again, that whole trader mechanic, it's not really a trader mechanic, but everybody definitely has their own objectives, which can conflict definitely with other people's objectives. The last thing I wanted to point out is this little red symbol. That's for when you are turning the room, so that you know how many times you can search inside of it. Again, how much you turn the room is based on the token that sits on top of it. And then finally, you can see here there are these various numbers outside of each room that are in the hallways. So when you move from room to room, say for example, you move from here to here, you're going to have to do a noise roll. Now, if you just move standard, you end up moving into here and you roll a die. So where your roll ends up is completely random, and that's where those unique D10s come in, because there's 2 of each number, but then there's 2 intruder symbols, things like that. So say you roll a 1 or a 2, well, your noise marker is going to go into this corridor. So you have double the chance of making noise in this smaller corridor, whereas this longer corridor, I guess, maybe absorbs the noise better, I don't know. But last is that if you happen to roll a 3, your noise marker is going to be placed, I guess. I thought there was a spot on the board to place the noise markers. Maybe it is over here. Okay, so yes, this is where you would place your noise marker. You can see the red symbol and the red symbol, and that changes. Here it's a 4, here it's a 2 and a 3. So this is like the corridors, the unseen, like ventilation shafts and things like that. This is what this represents. So if you've made noise in 3 here, you've made noise here, and then you go over here and you make noise again in the ventilation system, eventually you could be way over here, and these are the first 2 places you made noise. Well, you make noise in the ventilation system again, then the aliens are going to pop out from there and hit you right here. So that's essentially what these numbers mean. It does work when the tiles are on here, and once they've all, a lot of them been flipped over, the board does look really nice. It looks like a spaceship, kind of has that galaxy trucker look to it. But the board and the system and everything does work really well for sneaking through the ship, moving one tile at a time, things like that. So again, keep an eye out for a how to set up and how to play video coming very soon for this, and then we'll probably go ahead and do a like a solo playthrough, and then hopefully my hope is that I can recruit some friends to play this game on Halloween and do a live stream of Nemesis on Halloween, because this is got to be one of the best games you could get out for a truly horrifying theme. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, including more Nemesis content coming soon, please consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.